Okay, welcome everyone. The folks are just starting to arrive here, so we'll give it just a minute and we'll do some quick introductions and then we'll kick off the session here with Rob. See Wyoming's coming in, the SCCA folks are here, Dartmouth Formula Racing, MIT, so that's good, a good bunch, a good bunch. All right, why don't we start? So this is going to be in an interview format. We've gotten a few questions ahead of time. If you have a question, take a look at the button at the bottom of your screen that should say Q&A. If you hit that, then you'll be able to enter a question to ask Rob. So as a little bit of introductions, I'm Mike Chapman. I'm the director of Formula Hybrid Plus Electric. The other folks from the FH&E team are Michael Royce. Michael?
I'm on the one of the leads at the mechanical tech inspection, and I review the SESs.
Okay, thank you. And Micah?
Hello, I'm the program and events coordinator for Formula Hybrid.
All right, great. And we're very, very fortunate to have Rob Smedley with us this morning. Rob was a Formula One race engineer for Jordan, for Ferrari, and for Williams. He was the director of data systems for Formula One, and he's now the founder and the CEO of the Smedley Group. So Rob, if you want to kick it off with a couple of remarks, then I'd love to hear about your new venture, because I think that's kind of under the radar here for our folks in the U.S.
Not for long, Mike.
Yeah, good news.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for having me. Thanks for joining. I'm Rob Smedley. Yeah, long career in and around Formula One motor racing. I started not long after university with the Formula One team back in the 90s. We can get into all of that during the chat here. And then up to the present day, where I run my own engineering and technology. So we do advanced technology projects. We're very heavily invested into data analytics on simulation. And then I also have kicked off quite recently a very purpose-driven, I guess, karting series, so grassroots, so trying to help kids get into the sport. I think if you're going to get kids into the sport, they should be first of all considering what the grassroots look like before we start to get into the heady heights of Formula One. So that's what I've been up to for the last 30 years.
All right, great. Thank you, Rob. So can we say that you're trying to find the next Lewis Hamilton?
I don't know. I'm trying to find the next Lewis Hamilton. I'm trying to find someone who's better than Lewis. And I have a huge amount of respect for Lewis and what he's done for our sport. But I'm firmly of the belief, just given the barriers to entry of young people getting into the sport. We have a mantra here within the business that the best driver hasn't yet sat in a Formula One car. So we're all about finding that next generation and next level of talent.
Yeah, wonderful, fantastic. So Rob, if we can, shall we go to some of the student questions?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. So we have one here. Hello, Mr. Smedley. It's a big honor to get to speak to you and get your insight on our questions. As a huge F1 fan and someone who is studying mechanical engineering with hopes to work in that industry one day, I'm wondering if you think it's possible to make your way in Formula One with an all-American education, bachelor's and master's, or is it such a Europe-centered industry? I'd also be very grateful for any tips you have make one's way to becoming a part of an F1 team one day. What do you think, Rob? It's
I mean, it's absolutely possible to get into Grand Prix racing with a US centric education. You know, I think that you know, to use US terminology, you know, the majors that you guys do across there, you know, you end up with a very good education. So Formula One is not about where you got you know, your education from. It's at what level you have been educated. And it's fair to say, you know, it's probably the most meritocratic system of you know, technicians, engineers, scientists that there is on the planet, just because the competition is so very high. So, you know, no organization can carry anything other than, you know, the very best engineers and scientists. So honestly, it's a barrier to entry. Certainly isn't where you got your education from. It's how educated you are. And in fact, you know, I have employed people in the past, in the quite recent past, in Formula One, guys whose education was solely based in the United States. You know, they then got some experience in the race series across there in the States, IndyCar, NASCAR, and then, you know, whatever series, and then eventually migrated across the pond to the UK or Europe to work in Formula One. So there's a huge precedent of engineers and technicians who've only had a US education. So, like, how do you get into it? I think I probably just answered that, or probably just alluded to it. The principal route is, first of all, be really intelligent and be really good at maths and physics, because if you can't do them things, it'd be difficult to find your route in. You know, get a really good first class honors degree in a relevant subject, a relevant major. And then I think that you've got to get some experience a little bit further down the racing ladder than Formula One. And I think that's important for two reasons. So first is, it will make you stand out. You know, if you are literally just, you know, trying to get in on a graduate scheme or something like that, it's very hard, and there is a huge competition. But if you are able to differentiate yourself somehow by having some experience within lower formula teams, that's very attractive, because it means that, you know, you already know the space. The space is very, very difficult, and you know, in terms of it's a tough working environment. I think if you can survive like 5 years in Formula One, it means that you've got really thick skin. If you do, you know, if you're getting into multiple decades, you end up like me. You're all skin. You know, you have to be like hyper resilient. It's a very, very tough environment. You know, there's only the focus is unbelievably laser, in as much that everybody cares about one thing, which is making your car relatively faster than everybody else on the grid. So I think that when you look at it in those terms, you have to be able to adapt to that environment, and that's very, very different to the environment that you're probably, you know, facing now in terms of a formal education. You have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to take the setbacks. You have to be able to kind of start at the bottom and feed your way through. And what happens is it's a sport that has a superficial glamour to it. I call it a superficial glamour. So it's kind of like, you know, what you watch on a Sunday afternoon, looks super shiny and super glamorous. Once you get on the inside of it, it's nothing like that. It's just hard work. It's engineering. It's technology. It's literally no different to working in any other engineering business, apart from one thing. The budgets are significantly higher for research and development than most sectors. And there's this competition element to it. You know, every 2 weeks you have to put you and your colleagues' work on show for 1.5 billion people to watch and judge you. By the way, not just watch; they'll judge you, and they'll judge you very strongly. And the more you become recognized in the team, the stronger that judgment becomes. So you've got to be ready to adapt and really enjoy that environment. And if what you see on the TV, you know, the glitz, the glamour, the Netflix Drive to Survive is your main point of focus and interest, then quite honestly, and I've seen this happen many times, it's not the industry for you. You see it less with technicians and engineers and scientists, but it still happens. It still happens frequently that, you know, guys will come in, they'll do 6 months, 12 months or whatever, and they realize that, you know, if they're going to have to work this hard for the next like 25, 30 years, they're going to fall over. So, so I think that, you know, this is you know, getting some experience down at the grassroots, down at the lower formula, that gives you a really good knowledge, not so much of Formula One and the level of detail that Formula One goes into, but of motorsports and the motorsports industry and what it requires to win or to be competitive. And that's always attractive. So my advice would be, get a really good degree, get the best you can out of your education. You should be doing that in whatever, you know, is your chosen industry post-education, and then go and get some experience at the grassroots in the lower formula. And, you know, without sounding arrogant, in terms of technology, everything is lower than Formula One. So just go and find yourself in any formula, probably stateside, and then eventually migrate across the pond and get yourself a job in Formula One.
All right, great. Thank you, Rob. So a quick question for you on, it seems as though if we go back years ago, the main focus of education for the folks that came in as race engineers is mostly mechanical. But with the hybrid cars these days, it seems like computer science and electrical are also skills that the teams would be looking for. Is that correct?
Yeah, teams are pretty much looking for skills in every area of technology. Formula One has always been at the very leading edge, the bleeding edge of technology, of the technology curve. It's always done a very good job of that. Why? Because if you're not, your competitor will be, and they'll get in front. So it's pretty ruthless from that point of view. So Formula One is always looking for an edge. So, you know, in terms of, computer science is a really strong area now. Data science, data analytics, simulation, aerodynamics, fluid dynamics, thermodynamics, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, electronics engineering, every single type of software development that you could dream of, included embedded code. And I hope there's no embedded code developers on the call, but they are quite a weird bunch. If we're slightly weird as engineers, they take the biscuit. So my advice would, don't spend too much social time with them. But you know, joking aside, you know, I think that they are, you know, Formula One teams are looking for every area of technology, not just like mechanical engineer or classic engineering. And now, you know, in terms of data science, especially with the growth, I wouldn't call it the growth, because, you know, especially marketeers, they get a little bit confused about AI and think it was invented somewhere just after 2019, just after COVID. Of course, it's been around since the 50s, but there's much more application for artificial intelligence now. And there's clear applications in a very fast-moving environment like Formula One, or, you know, an environment that is data rich, there's a dichotomy in Formula One that we're very, very data driven, we're very, very data rich, or we're very, very data, or we're very, very analytical. But you know, unlike the finance industry where you are collecting literally petabytes of data per second across the globe, we go out and we generate data on the bit that matters, the racetrack, once every 2 weeks. So there's a bit of a dichotomy there, but that's where artificial intelligence comes in. So again, you know, there's more and more opening for you know, engineers with either machine learning or wider AI experience as well. But if you have a technology that you're interested in, and you know you're majoring in, you can pretty much guarantee that there will be a place in a Formula One team for you.
Okay. Awesome, thank you. We have a question from Kylie from the Dartmouth Formula Racing team. What hard/soft skills did you have that you think helped you land your first job in F1? Where did you learn those skills? We've already said thick skin, but I think that's kind of you know, over the years you developed that, but you had to have a fairly thick skin going in.
Yeah. So hard skills is probably like an easier one. Well, no, let's try the soft skills, and some of them like kind of cross over. But I am like an unbelievably competitive person. Like, and I don't know whether that is always a pleasant characteristic to be around. Everything is a competition for me. You know, I want to win at everything that I do. I think as you get older, you realize that's not possible, and you kind of temper expectations. But in the back of my mind, everything is a competition. Everything that I do now is a competition. So I think that's really helpful, because if you are in, you know, if you want to embed yourself within a Formula One team, you have to be part of that really strong competitive, you know, you have to have that really strong competitive mindset, where everything is about extracting the most you can, optimizing the most you can, juicing the most you can the situation that you're in. You know, everything is about tiny marginal gains, and everything is about, you know, tiny competitions, even with yourself in your own mind. So I definitely have that as a soft skill. I think you know, I've never read a management book in my life, but I guess I am a natural. I guess the point I was trying to make is that probably enough people have told me this now that I guess it's true. I am a natural leader. I don't even know what a natural leader is, but I seem to be able to corral teams to do things that they might have thought not possible. And I think that's really important, that you're able to that you're able to do that. I think it's important that you do have some level of leadership skills. You know, I ended up managing you know, upwards of 300 people in a Grand Prix team in my area. You know, you kind of lose touch with, there's no way that you can have a single touch point on with usually more than like 10-20 people. But you do have to have those leadership skills. Adaptability, you know, you are dealing with many different, especially in sport, you tend to deal with many different personalities. So you can be dealing with, you know, especially latterly for me in Formula One, you're dealing with you know, team owners, CEOs of teams. You're dealing with engineers, you're dealing with athletes, and all of those need an adaptable approach. You can't deal with you know, each one of those subsets or all of those subsets in exactly the same way, because you won't get the most out of those people. So I think you certainly need to be adaptable. You need to be like another like soft skill, I guess it is you need to be unbelievably hardworking and committed. Formula One is a vocation. There's no doubt about it. You know, it's not something that you can kind of do from 9 to 5 for 4 days a week. It's something that you have to be totally and utterly committed to if you are going to not only survive but thrive. So I guess they are my soft skills. Hard skills, I mean, it's a funny one actually, because you know, when I went into Formula One in the late 90s, I was very lucky that I joined F1 at a time where there wasn't such a prevalence of scientists and engineers, qualified scientists, professional scientists, or professional engineers. But the team that I went into, the Stewart Grand Prix team, which is now the Red Bull team, I was employee number 47 of 47. So imagine Grand Prix teams with 47 people now. It's crazy to think. But within that team, there was very few what I would call qualified engineers who had, you know, a very mathsy, physics, you know, first principles bent towards doing things. So, you know, very quickly, what I was able to do was establish, you know, projects and benefits to the team by using physics and maths and engineering and all those things that perhaps, you know, weren't being deployed to the utmost of the you know, to what was possible. And we made really good inroads. You know, we had a very good car, pretty much straight out of the box, and that wasn't obviously solely to do with me at 22 years old. But it was helpful that I was able to do things and from first principles that perhaps weren't being thought about, because everything was more empirical, and use the skills that I'd learned at university as a professional engineer. And again, you know, as I said, do things from first principles and then prove that they work. The proof is in the pudding, right? The car goes faster and then suddenly goes, oh, right, okay, maybe it's not like, you know, maybe it's not mumbo jumbo magic. He might be talking some sense. So I was pretty lucky that, you know, I had those skills. You know, I was always a very curious kid in terms of like hard skills as well. I ended up, you know, studying. I really, you guys would call it, majored in mathematics, mainly because I was pretty lazy at school and it was really easy for me to do. I didn't have to try very hard. So I really majored in like maths and physics and stuff like that. And then as I got older, I realized that I was really interested in like how things worked in engineering, but you could use all of that. You know, there was, if you took everything back to the most elegant solution, then it was just all maths in the end. You know, engineering is a lot of it is just maths, or the majority of it is just maths, the first principle stuff. So I was lucky that, you know, I had a brain that worked like that. And then I worked out at a fairly young age where my passions were, and then how to marry, you know, or I was lucky that where my passions lie and what I was good at academically kind of married up together. But I'm still a complete nerd in terms of, like, you know, talking about hard skills. I'm still a maths nerd. I'm still a physics nerd. I think I drive, you know, there's a bunch of guys outside of this. There's a whole technology and engineering office outside my office here that I think I drive insane by just asking incessant questions about maths and physics and trying to get always back to first principles. In fact, you can almost hear there's a silent groan as I walk outside. And it was the same when I was in Formula One teams as well. There's this silent groan, like, oh my God, he's come out of his office. He's going to have some question for us. So I think always have that curiosity, and once you've asked the first question, it'll lead on to another 10, and keep asking, and you'll get to the right answer.
So Rob, you talked a little bit about what you studied in school. So what were your specific steps between school and Formula One? How did you navigate that path?
So I studied mechanical engineering. I finished that. I had a heavy bias towards maths because I actually started doing maths and then thought, this is you know, this is not really the totality of my passions. So I switched to engineering, and then I did mechanical engineering. I finished that, and then I went to work for your students. None of your students will remember this, only the historians. But there was an old Grand Prix team from a place in the east of England called BRM, British Racing Motors, that ran all the way up to the 80s, I think. And they were the chief designer of that team had started his own engineering business, and he was looking for somebody young to come and help him. Well, it was supposed to be like as a design engineer's job, and I ended up doing about 15 different jobs over the period of about 18 months. So I worked in like what you guys would call stock car, like touring cars, British touring cars. I designed the first ever Ford World Rally car. So the first WRC, when it went from Group A to WRC. I did lots of projects on that car, including electronics, embedded code projects, stuff like that. So I did a lot of stuff, a lot of structural engineering as well. Learned about suspension design. I designed the suspension on 2 successive touring cars actually that went and won. And then very quickly I got approached by a Formula One team, and which was the Stewart Grand Prix team. And then I went to work there. Again, it was supposed to be, I can't even remember I think, no, I do remember what it's called. Yeah, I was a junior. Was I a junior engineer, or was I a junior data engineer? I can't remember. Anyway, one of them, I was some like totally non-politically correct. Like, you wouldn't call like a young student a junior engineer now, right? It's kind of demeaning, but they called me that, and I didn't really care. Never have cared about titles. So I ended up being I think I was predominantly supposed to be a data engineer. But what happened again was that like I had pretty much ended up doing like almost everything. So I was in the wind tunnel. So I used to design parts for the wind tunnel. I used to then make those parts and test them in the wind tunnel. I used to design parts for the car in R&D, and then go and test them in R&D in the research and development labs. We used to take those parts to the car. We would take them testing over at Silverstone or someone like that. I would learn about, like, I would run the car. I would then look at my own data. They ended up doing like pretty much everything and getting this really good grounding. And then, started to think about like that's where very early on we started to apply like first principle stuff. Like, so the first ever active differential, all the stability control, active launch control, active pit stop control, funny way of doing ABS, all of that stuff. It was just like a playground for like a kid of like 22 at the time. But that was it. I took a very fast route through the junior formula, and then ended up at Stewart Grand Prix, and then went from there to various different teams.
Yeah, it sounds like flexibility and inquisitiveness were the main things that drove me in those early days.
Absolutely.
So another question from one of the students: what's been your favorite and your least favorite parts about your job?
So favorite is teamwork. Being part of a really like high functioning team and playing your small part in the success of that team. And I think when it works well, like it did, especially in my Ferrari years and in the early years at Williams, when you have the team working in a really cohesive and collaborative way, it's absolutely my favorite part of the job. The least favorite parts of the job, it's fairly easy, and the engineering as well. I love the engineering, I love the innovation, creating something new. It's still, even within my business now, it gets me like really like quite excited when we can't solve something, because it means that we're innovating. It means that it hasn't been done before. Usually the very essence of innovation is that you fail before you find a solution. So I really love that problem solving. I'm bringing everything back to first principles and working from, you know, almost sometimes even like a pen and paper, but simulation and simulation software, you know, solving things like that. I just think it still excites me to this day. That's why I'm an engineer. I love the competition. Undoubtedly, you know, that was like, it's almost like a drug, like the Sunday afternoon trying to beat your rivals. You know, it's you never lose it. You never, you know, you never get rid of that. It's just in your system. It's just part of me. So and I loved that competition. I never shied away from the competition. The more difficult the competition, you know, the harder the competition. Like when you're in a real dogfight with another Formula One team, another Grand Prix team for the World Championship. I love that. That's the environment that I thrived in. So they are without a doubt the most enjoyable parts. The least enjoyable parts is the travel on and off a plane, you know, away from your family. I dislike that with a passion. So you know, it's something that was a necessary evil, but it's still something that I vehemently dislike. And the other bit, if I may, is being recognised as well. I'm actually quite a private and reserved person. So you know, when I started getting recognised, it freaked me out. And still does. You learn to deal with it. You learn to accept it as being part of the job. But yeah, that's still one of probably the least favorite parts of it for me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rob. So we have a question here that comes from someone who is, I think, somewhat of a Formula One historian, and he's asking about the collaboration and teamwork amongst folks in the team. So he asked, at Ferrari, you had a really international team with John Tott, a Frenchman, as team principal, Ross Brawn, a Brit, as technical director, Rory Byrne, a South African, as chief designer, Nigel Stepney, another Brit, as chief mechanic, Evan Short, a Canadian, as the electronics engineer, Italian mechanics, and then Michael Schumacher, a German, and Felipe Massa, a Brazilian, as your drivers. What was the language in team meetings and other team correspondence, and what was the language going back to the engineers and designers at Maranello?
So team meetings was like everything was you know, from engineering level upwards was English. We were so international that, you know, almost every meeting and every meeting that would have a non-Italian in would always be in English. But most engineering, the discipline was throughout the team that you know, as I say, from like fairly mid-level engineering upwards, would always be in English. So I actually have a good story about that. So I was at Jordan Grand Prix, which is now the Aston Martin team, and I was approached by Ferrari to go and work there. And so I didn't know Ross Brawn at the time. So I went to his house because obviously, you know, he was very well recognized within the sport. And I guess I was gaining a bit of a reputation. So if we'd have sat together in a Formula One paddock, you know, the journalists would have had a field day. So I actually went to his house one Sunday evening, or in fact, over a series of Sunday evenings, and had a conversation with him, and we talked through it. And you know, he said that there's a great opportunity here. You should come to Ferrari. You're still very young. You know, we want you to grow with the team, and blah blah blah. So anyway, finally we got to the point where we were going to sign a contract. I was in his house in Stoke Row. He doesn't live there anymore. He's moved to a different place now. So I was in his old house, and I kind of got to the end of it, and I signed the contract. And I thought, okay, let's go for it. So I signed a contract. It was an initial 3-year contract that they changed after the first 6 months to a 6-year contract. And I remember I was leaving his house, and I said to him, "Oh, I've just thought of something, right? Like, you know, this is after like a series of like 6, like, you know, 3-hour conversations with him or something. I said, I've just thought of something. I said, I don't speak Italian. And Ross, who was the technical director and obviously operated in the stratosphere of the team, said to me, oh, don't worry about it. Everybody speaks English. He said, that's the language of the team. He said, whenever I talk to anyone, they'll speak English. Anyway, that's probably okay in Ross's stratosphere. But when I went there, I run the test team. So I was with like all of the local guys from Maranello. And on the first day I got there, I suddenly realized that this thing that everybody spoke English was a complete nonsense and nobody spoke English at all. So I learned very quickly to speak Italian. But it was great because it means that I'm now fluent in Italian and French and Spanish and all those other Latin languages. But yeah, I think it's always good. I always talk to, you know, my direct reports and the more junior people that we have in the business now and say, learning a language, if you want to, you know, really succeed as a senior leader in business or in technology, having another language in your armory is just as good as having, like, you know, a technical hard skill.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that was one of the following questions was, what was the most enjoyable part of living and working in Italy?
You know, I think that for me, the most enjoyable part was you know, you don't work for a Formula One team when you work for Ferrari. You work for the national team. You know, it's like working for the national soccer team. There is an unbelievable passion and support for the team. If you think about, like, here in the UK, just in this area where I am now, you know, there's 5 Formula One teams within like 15 minutes of me. So, you know, for a UK fan or for like people who work in Formula One teams, there's a like what do you want to call it? Like there's a dilution, right, of fans. You know, there's not the support that you get with the Ferrari team. So for me, both the passion, you know, inside and outside of the team, where I found it, like, you know, it created a huge energy for me. It was really, really like super enjoyable, and drove me to want to succeed, you know, even more, you know, be part of the team that succeeds. And when we were very successful, you know, from when I was there, over that period, we won 7 world championships in 10 years. So you could argue that, you know, we were incredibly successful. We were dominant at that point, but it was always driven on by just the sheer passion. You know, there was a lot of intellect and a lot of competence and a lot of capability and capacity. You know, we have to accept that we were a big team. But, you know, working within that team, both the internal passion and focus of winning, and then the outside, you know, passion from the tifosi that you got, I always found, you know, was hugely energy giving. So I think that was probably my most enjoyable part. But then, you know, if I take from a personal level as well, for me, I wanted to, you know, it was important for me to integrate with the local environment. You know, I didn't want to go there and, like, you know, be a superstar that you know, kind of locked myself away and didn't, like, you know, integrate with the local community. So, you know, I made it my business to you know, get involved with lots of things that went on in the community, to give back to the community as well. You know, the local community in Maranello Modena is hugely supportive of Ferrari, and I think it's up to the senior people within the team as well to give back, to give your time back, or whatever it is, to give your support back to the community. And I made a lot of friends. You know, we still have friends there. We have a place there in Italy. You know, it's very close for us in Europe. The whole of Europe is the size of North America. So, you know, it's a 2-hour hop on a plane to get to down to Italy and see all of, you know, my friends, and we go back there at least once or twice a year. I don't go into the town much because I get a bit of stick off the fans for leaving, but we certainly have some nice time at the house.
It's funny that you mentioned that. It follows right into the next question, and that is, to what other areas does the innovation that you develop at Formula One diffuse? Other companies, even into other industries? towards other problems that need solving? And if and when your most highly skilled people leave, to where do they go, presuming they're not retiring?
So, I mean, you know, Formula One has always been, like I talked about before, it's always been at the bleeding edge of technology. And given the levels of competition, it's had to create its own technology as well. So there's lots of different, there's lots of different examples of it. The most recent example, I guess, is the thermal efficiency of the current internal combustion engines in a Grand Prix car. So if you take, hybrids in a Formula One car, were introduced in, or let's say thermal efficiency as a target was introduced in Formula One in 2014. So let's call it, just over 10 years ago. So from the age of the ICE, so from the age of the birth of the ICE, the internal combustion engine, up until 2014, average thermal efficiency was around about 27%. Today that stands at 55%. So when you look what Grand Prix racing does for, and 55% in a Formula One car, you look at an average OEM car now, they've gone from 27% on average, they're upwards now, the most highest performing cars are up to 45%. So, that's a huge impact that Formula One has had on technology and on the world in general. We've got a huge problem of, in terms of environmental science, global warming. It won't all be solved by one single element. Everybody kind of bets the house on EV, and then the next minute they're betting the house on hydrogen or whatever. It's going to take lots of different innovation and technology to solve this problem and bring down, carbon emissions. But that's one way that Formula One has definitely helped. There's lots of industries where the innovation is helpful. EV technology now. So if you look at the hybrid part of EV technology in a Grand Prix car, in the hybrid power unit, we are starting to get unbelievable power values out of cells and batteries. Different innovations in cell type, cell structures, pouch, prismatic, cylindrical. We're starting to get really, really high values out, and that's all driven by Formula One technology, by the need to have, as higher power and most efficient power as possible. That all then filters down into the EV part of the equation of solving, carbon emissions. Materials technology, we're constantly developing new materials, and that will go into the automotive industry. It goes into the aerospace industry. It goes into space, the space industry. So I think if you look at simulation and data analytics, use cases of artificial intelligence, again, all of these are very prevalent, and the spaces for innovation in Grand Prix racing that go into different areas. So what happens when people retire or people move away from Formula One? It's not that it's not that common that you get people that move away. But when they do, they will usually move into, I wouldn't want to even try and categorize people moving to anything that is, engineering and technical people I'm talking about. They will move into anything, any area that is advanced technology, anything that kind of keeps the gray matter thinking and is at the leading edge of technology. You'll find ex-Formula One engineers and scientists.
All right, great, thank you. Let's see, we have another education question. Do you think going to the UK to get a master's and making the connections there would be advantageous, more advantageous than trying to climb the lower ranks of motorsport in North America?
No, no, I don't think so. I think people kind of put too much emphasis on, like, this gilded route or something like that. Get a good education. I mean, the education that that I assume you are getting from your US college will be a good education. It's more important that you learn the fundamentals of engineering and science. It's really important that you just get a good grounding as an engineer, or whatever your chosen area of science is, and then start to put that into practice. And you can put that into practice in the lower formula teams. I think that you need a good education and some level of practical application. And if you've got that, and you keep pushing on enough doors, one of them will open. I don't think you need to go to Europe to get a master's, no.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. So, Rob, we've grilled you for almost 50 minutes here. So, one last question for you. What does the future hold for Rob Smedley?
Good question. I mean, I'm busy building the businesses, outside of this office here. We have a fairly ambitious growth plans in terms of what we're trying to do with the data analytics and simulation business. We're getting into some really funky areas with that business now. And it's just really cool to be innovating around that space. And then, I've got the grassroots, the karting business as well, which is actually we're going to establish in the United States in April. And that's about getting kids into, the more competitive driving aspect of racing, rather than the engineering. Although, being an engineer, I have put a STEM program. So if you're going to drive the karts, you've got to be able to do a contextualized STEM program as well, which means that all the questions, you learn about maths and physics from like 5 years old, and engineering, but we contextualize it in Formula One, because or rally cars or karts or whatever it is. So that's pretty cool. I want to build that. That's a pretty cool legacy to leave, to have changed an industry, to have disrupted an industry. And I'm very much about, like, trying to disrupt, an industry that needs disrupting. The driver markets, or moving into the driver markets, becoming a driver. There's too many barriers to entry. If you want to, if you want to become an engineer or a technologist in Formula One, it is, you could say, almost fully democratized. If you can't afford school fees there, but you are bright enough, there will be a scholarship for you, which is actually how I came through college. And then if you're good enough, you'll get picked up by a Formula One team. So I think that the point here is that, everything in, all of the pathways, especially for technologists, into Formula One, are fully democratized, but driving isn't. If you want to find drivers, they have to have huge budgets. So I want to change that. I want to completely flip the script on that and make it about driver talent. My business partner always uses a really good he has a really good phrase, which is that talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't. So we're all about creating opportunity and trying to get more kids either into the sport as drivers, or just interested in the sport, or even just interested in engineering. Right? How to make engineering cool? There's a challenge for you. So that's what we're about at the minute, and that's what I will probably be busy with for the next few years. I mean, I would say, just to kind of finish on that question is, people ask me all the time why I didn't stay in Formula One, why I'm not a team principal now. That's what that was the pathway that I was on. So when I was at Williams, the pathway that we had a very defined pathway they had a very defined pathway for me to eventually become team principal. But I kind of like stepped out of the shower one day and just thought, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I've done this now. I'm really young. I'm not to your students, but you know, I'm in my early mid 40s. I've had a good run at it. I don't think I can take any more years of you know 50 plus flights. Even when you're at the front end of the airplane, it still becomes pretty tedious. So you know, I stepped away from it. I never say never. You know, I'm still, whatever you want to call it, unfortunate enough to receive offers from Grand Prix racing teams, to go back as technical director, as chief technical officer, as team principal. But the right opportunity hasn't come up yet. You know, if the right opportunity comes up, I will never say never. You know, if I said I'm never going to do it, sod's law will be that someone will call me tomorrow, and then you know you'll read in the newspaper that I'm going to do it, and you'll all think I'm a liar. So I'm never going to say never.
Awesome. So Rob, thank you very much for being with us today. Just wanted to let you know that the Formula Hybrid plus Electric competition is going to be at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway up in New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire. We'll be there from April 28th to May 1st, and that's the week just prior to the Miami Grand Prix. So if you happen to find yourself with some extra days, I'd like to invite you to come up, see the teams. We have about 30 teams this year, about 600 university kids. So if you find a little bit of extra time, please come visit.
Cool. Thank you very much. That would be great. That would be awesome.
Okay.
And
All right.
Rob, I will be over at Formula Student again in July. So my late wife and I were there ever since the first one in 1998.
Cool. Well done. Yeah. Wow. Great. Looking forward to it.
So
All right. Rob, thank you again. Really much appreciated.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you soon.
We'll
Best
see
of
you.
luck.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.